Titles drop, ladies and gentlemen. Here at WineBid, we are finally hammered. That's right. This is WineBid's podcast studying all things wine value, wine auction, wine retail, and just wine. My name is Jeff McGurn with WineBid's marketing team. With me, as always, is Paul Walker, our expert of wine, known around the world as the Kaiser of Claret. That's right. Paul. And we're going to be, and which is aptly, I mean, his title is apt because we're going to be talking today about France and everything we've got coming. Well, not everything we've got, but a lot of the really interesting things we've got coming to auction. France. I'm going to jump just right into it. I'm going to go to Bordeaux because that's where I usually start. It's at the top of my. It's how my list is organized. Let's talk about it because we have some crazy Bordeaux coming into auction this week. Like 45 Lafite Rothschild for $3,000, 59 Aubryon for $4,500, 61 Petrus for $7,000. My birthday's coming out, Paul.
Oh, you're 61? You're looking pretty good for 61.
I mean, I will agree to being born in 61.
I thought it was 81. I didn't know it was 61. I thought it was 81. So
no, anyway. 61 Petrus. We got a 67 Dechem for 945. We have 4 of those actually, and there's a ton of Dechem coming into auction. Like just a bevy of Dechem.
Really nice line of it. Yeah.
Really nice. I also have my eye on this 05 Leoville Las Casas for 245. I'm curious to see where that goes, if it holds at 245, if it comes down. And then if you're going to spend 245 on Leoville Las Casas, there's also this it's a different vintage, but 19 La Maison Aubryon for 275, which I actually didn't think was crazy for the 19 La Maison Aubryon.
No, there's these more, younger release Bordeaux are still a lot of deals. Not in half bottle, as we mentioned in our earlier episode about all these half bottles getting bid up far beyond half the value of the 750. But for 750s and for high-end wine like La Mission, it's not, they're not crazy. Not
crazy. You could go with a 95 De Cru Boucalot for 195.
Boucaillou.
For 195. We got 6 of those. Or you could go with the 05.
95 has always been high. It's always got big scores.
Got big scores. Well, but then we've got the 05 De Cru Boucaillou mag for 470, that's not cheap either, right?
No, it's up there.
But it's getting up. The Boucaillou is getting up there. The ones I was looking at this 08 Clinet, which we have 4 of those. They all have bids taken from 90 to 91.
Yeah, there's a lot of 08 Bordeaux in too, which always has been kind of reasonable. I remember, the futures were for sale when, the market was in turmoil. And so the prices on those futures were much, much more reasonable than, say, for the 05s and other, big vintages. But I don't know how well those wines have aged, overall. I'd be interested to see, what some experts are saying about some of them. But I saw, speaking of 08, there's Trolong Mondo for $100, which I think is probably the most inexpensive from a good to great vintage that you can get for Trolong Mondo. So anyway, lots of, there's a kind of a smattering of 08 Bordeaux in this. It's weird because there's some really, really old, banner vintage, top tier stuff. There's there's 90 Montrose, which I always like to mention because it's, it's such a star wine.
Did you see this 86 Garode La Rose for 165? One of them has a bid.
Yeah. So there's just everything under the sun this week. And then, like you said, sweet wine too. And not just serious vintages of Dechem, but there's 58, which I've never really I don't think I remember seeing at all, but it's 710. So it's, quite a bit less than the 67, but probably not nearly as good. And then there's 75, which is a great vintage, but not tremendously expensive. It's 505 for Dechem anyway. And then there's 79 Dechem, another Dechem I haven't tasted for 390. And then 89 and 90, they're 2 phenomenal vintages. There's half bottles of 89 for 230, which I think is, for such a spectacular vintage, it's not horrifically expensive. And then 90 full bottles for 340, which I don't think are too bad. Then there's also 01, which again is probably the best vintage I don't know in the last 25 years or so.
And 2000 Trottenway for we have 2 of those for 290.
Yeah. Yeah, Church Noir. There's 2000 for 295. Yeah, it's. I mean, that's really really collectible. I noticed sort of along that line, there is 95 and 2010 Lafleur Petrus, which no doubt will probably be exceeding $300 in the future. 95 is at 240, and the 2010 is right. It's right there. It's at 295.
Some investment advice from Paul Walker. Right.
Well, no. Don't
walk her back. Don't walk her back.
Investment advice. I just speculate that these wines
like bye. You were hitting your Jim Cramer bye.
Oh God!
Sound effects for you.
Please, no, I don't associate with such nonsense.
Let's head over to Burgundy. I only have a few things from Burgundy.
Wait a minute. I'm not done with Bordeaux. Put the brakes on it for a second. You rushed through a little bit too quick. I did want to mention there's 90 Beausejour du Faux, which is another, probably their most famous wine of all time because of the score, and it is great wine. I've actually had it a couple of times. It's phenomenal, and the price remains quite high. It's at $570. Actually, 90 Montrose versus 90 Beausejour du Faux would be an amazing lineup because they're similarly priced and they're both fantastic. But another one that I thought was quite cool was 61 Grand Prix Lacoste half bottles for $295. So, phenomenally famous vintage of the 20th century, and you won't be paying Petrus pricing for it. So I thought that was kind of cool. And the bottle, I think, looks in really really good shape. I'm just looking at my list right now. I'm not looking on the auction, but there's a bunch of great Haut-Brion. 90, 95, 96, 98, 2000, 2003. The 03 is actually relatively reasonable. I had that wine a few years ago, and it was excellent. It was very 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 good. 90 Terre de Rotebeuf caught my eye as well. You don't see that wine very often. That's at 290. Yeah, just an amazing array of Bordeaux this week. 83 Margaux, 2000 Margaux, 2000 Mouton, which is just very expensive, next to a lot of the other 2000 wines, but it is good. There's also the famous 1993 with the illegal Balthus label on it for collectors out there.
Why is it illegal? Why is that illegal?
Well, they made two versions. There's a version with a nude young lady on it, and then there's a version that the government decreed was acceptable for U.S. drinkers, which has nothing on it. And so you don't often see the Balthus label. It's called Balthus because he was the artist. Anyway, I think the Balthus label is worth a little bit more for whatever reason.
The Balthus label is the one that had the nude lady on it that was unacceptable for American drinkers.
Correct. It was unacceptable for the American government, not for most Americans.
They didn't want anyone under the age of 18 seeing or drinking that wine. All right.
Anyway, I just want to mention too. There's 2000 Chapelle de la Mission, which is harder to find, I would argue, than the flagship wine, and considerably less expensive. So that's probably a great bottle at $115. And then similarly, there's 2020 La Clarté, or I think it's Clarté de Haut-Brion. It's like the second or third label of Haut-Brion, and it's the white, which is quite rare, and it's under $100. I think it's like got a bid on it. It's like 76 or something. Anyway, so I always like to bring up those second and other labels of Bordeaux. So
let's head
now we can move on. No, you know what? 06 Vieux Chateau Saint-Anne Mags for 400, which I didn't think was terrible. It's what?
We're gonna have to catch you out. We got to go to Burgundy, Paul.
All right.
The train is leaving. The train is leaving. You're gonna have to hitchhike if you don't get on this train to Burgundy, Paul.
Okay. VCC, right. Don't miss out on the VCC in this week because it's relatively reasonable. 235 for the 19. All right.
All about VCC ever since I introduced him to it. I'm glad to hear. I'm really glad to hear that. So to me, I felt like, look, I just
want to correct my pronunciation. It is Clarté de Haut-Brion. It does have an accent aigu over it. So anyway, now we can move on.
You know what? I'm glad you did that because I was going to have to correct you. I was going to be embarrassing for you. Let's talk Burgundy for a second. And I think what's really cool about this week with Burgundy, and I'm going to mention three things that I saw, but I want you to take the reins here because I felt like this week there was a lot of value Burgundy in the auction. Like oftentimes we'll see a week where it's like everything's like $500 or above, or they're like most of the stuff, a lot of the good stuff. But this week there was a ton of stuff that was under the $200 mark, under the $100 mark, even a lot of stuff sub 50. And I thought a lot of it was really interesting. I'll say like one I was looking at with this '07 Roti Charms Chambertin Très Villavine, which has a bid on it, take it from 230 to 240. 2000,
what vintage?
'07.
What vintage? '07. Interesting.
2010, Paul Pernod, Pouilly Montrachet, Foyer Taré for 110, or this '06. This one is super sketch, but I thought it was interesting that there's an '06 Louis Michel Chablis Le Clos Grand Cru for $75, right?
Yeah, Louis Michel wines are amazing. They're really, really good and really underappreciated at auction.
But for $75 for '06 maybe is not the best year.
No, it's a steal. That's a steal.
That seemed like a phenomenal deal to me for $75.
It's not. I mean, as a producer, they're not. It's not considered to be in the same realm as some of the other very well-known producers, but it's good wine, and that's a steal. I'm surprised there aren't any bids, and there are 4 bottles available. So
4 bottles.
If you want to try Le Clos for less than $100, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, look, if you want to try some Le Clos with some age on it, I mean, what are you going to pay? $200, $300 for one of the top producers, right? So this is
you pay a lot more than that for depending on the name, sure.
Depending on the name, right? But you can get it for as cheap as a couple $100, $300, maybe.
Yeah, Fev is probably somewhere in the 200 range, I would imagine. I mean, but yeah, that's a steal. That's a steal. I mean, it's an incredible vineyard. It's a great source, and I mean the ratings too. It's got some. If you care, it's got some really good scores. So.
Pen drop. I'm dropping my pen, Paul. Beat that. I just introduced.
Yeah, no, that stuck out to me. That stuck out to me very quickly because I thought, what the heck, this is a great deal. So I'm sure I'm sure people will go after it.
That, or did I introduce you to this? I feel like I introduced you. You're welcome. Thank me later.
Yes, I'd never heard of Chablis before I met Jeff.
Hit me with a bottle of 61 Petrus.
I thought Chablis was that sweet stuff you get from Central Valley. All right. You want me to take over here? Because there's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. Take the reins.
All right. Yeah, no, I don't want to sound like I'm just rattling off names, but there are actually some really, really interesting, really cool stuff that we don't see very often. 1990, Andre Catillard from Romane Malconsor. That was one of the first bottles that caught my eye because it starts with A. But anyway, 90 Catillard from Romane Malconsor. Very, very cool. Not cheap, but that's a rare one. There's 2020 Anne Boisson Bourgogne Blanc, fantastic Chardonnay, $25. So there you go. 2020 Benoit Hont Bourgogne Aligoté with an unpronounceable name, Antiton. I don't know how to say that, but anyway, $50 for that. 2020 Bonneau de Martrey, Corton Charlemagne, so some great 2020 whites. 90 Bouchard La Romanée. This is wine that now I think, who is it? The Count Ligier Belair has the entire vineyard, but back in the day, Bouchard owned it. I don't know if they had all of it, but anyway, that's a rare one. 90 La Romanée for $980. Also Bouchard, considerably less expensive than Ligier Belair. So that's a cool bottle. 02 Camille Giroux from Romanée. It's the village, but great vintage over 20 years. Fantastic. $90. Like you said, a lot of great wines under $100. There's some Dovisat Camus and Dovisat as well, Vincent Dovisat. Angros Clos Vougeot, 98. I thought for 210 was a very, very cool bottle. There's 05 Clos Lambre. There's some Durand La Rose Clos Vougeot from 08 that wasn't expensive. 99 Fourier Cherbourg for 275. There's La Marche Clos Vougeot from 09 for 140, which I thought was, again, reasonable to try something from Grand Cru Vineyard and a phenomenal vintage. It's got, at least 10 years on it, almost 15, actually, 15 years now. So that should be fantastic. And again, $140. Now, on the flip side, there is Mounier Echezot from 1995. for 750. There's also 91 Mayo Camazé Richebourg if you really want to go big. But, this was right after the Henri Jaillet era, and, very, very tricky to find those wines, especially from 91. And going back even further, 69 Merm Charme Chambertin, amazingly ripe vintage, and that's $100. So if you know somebody from, 1969, that's a great way to try a Grand Cru, Burgundy. Again, I don't know Domaine Merm at all, but it looks interesting. It's $100. You're not going to break the bank. It's very, very cool. 83 Trappé Chambertin for $350. Let's see, there's some Sauzet. There's a lot of Sauzet whites. I know there's concerns about premature oxidation with especially Etienne Sauzet, but the colors look great. They obviously passed inspection. There are things you can read online about premature oxidation if you want to really get into it. But in any event, there's some Betard, there's some Montrachet from 04 for $640. Not cheap, but Montrachet is never cheap. Some Pouligny Montrachet Champcanet 09 for $140. I didn't think was terrible. There's some Jante Pancio wines, which I think are delicious and not terribly expensive. 96 Charms, 99 Charms, 05 Charms for $185. Again, like Jeff said, a lot of really, really, really cool wines for not crazy prices. 99 Guylaine Barteau, Chameau Musigny Cry. I don't think I've seen any 90s Guylaine Barteau wines hardly at all. So that's another rarity. 09 Gouche Le Proulier for under $100 I thought wasn't bad. There's some Meunier. We don't need to mention the prices, but I always like to mention that wine's in the auction. Village Chameau Musigny 18, and also there's a 6-pack of the Clos de la Maréchale 18, which is arguably sort of an entry-level price for Meunier. 93 Jean Griveaux, Nuit Saint-Georges Les Boudeux, I thought was very interesting. Also $120, not terribly expensive. JJ Confront, Clos Vougeot 02 for $210. There's a 61 Drouin Beaune Champignon, which I thought was really wild. Beaune Red from Drouin from 1961 for $235. Again, very, very aged and sort of famous vintage wines here for not crazy prices. Now, they're not going to be like Rone Conti or whatever, but still, it's a way to try wines from these, ancient vintages, if you will, or older vintages that are not crazy expensive. There's some Les Oreilles, big batch of it. Actually, it looks like somebody got a great allocation, and there's some 19 and 20 Bourgogne Blanc, obviously on the lower end, and then there's some Gevrey en Roniard on the much higher end of the price range. Jeannot, there's a Jeannot Beaune Premier Cru, the Celebration bottle from 09, which is really, really, really tasty. I've had the wine like many times, and it's still excellent. It's still just got tons of fruit. It's really delicious. $85 for that. 14 Jeannot Clos Saint-Jacques, I thought wasn't terrible at $160. Let's see. There's a bunch of Lucien Lemoine wines, a bunch of Grand Crus, including Clos de Bez from 06, Clos de la Roche, Clos Saint-Denis, Corton Blanc, which you don't see every day, 05 Corton Charlemagne as well. There's Mazy, Meursault Perrier from multiple vintages, 09 and 2002 and 2010. So just a fantastic lineup of Lemoine stuff. There's three bottles of Lafarge Beaune Greve 02, which caught my eye for $120. Again, amazing early, 2000s vintage. It's got at least 20 years on it now. So great example there. 99 Mongiard Meunier Richebourg, not going to be cheap, but it's still, from an incredible red vintage. 780. You mentioned that Pernod Folatier. I saw that as well. Pierre Moret, there's Perriers from Pierre Moret for $260. Some Florent de Merode, Corton Bressand, 08 at $225. There's a batch of Simon B's wines, which are steadily creeping up. So these, I suspect these are all probably going to go over 100 eventually. But anyway, there's still quite a few under 100. The 12 Marcanet is 60. The 10 Fourneau is 85. 12 Fourneau is 70. 04. See, that's a different wine. Anyway, Simon B's wines there. Some great Beaune Reds. Really, really, really good. And then looks like, yes, I think my last pick is Vincent Giardin Meursault Les Perrier, because, it's a big negociant producer, but to try Merceau Perrier, 20 years old, for $80 is not that easy to do. Yeah, just a lot of really, really cool, I hate to say it, but value wines from Burgundy this week. So anyway, those were my picks.
Take it home for us. Finish up with the Rhone.
Okay, yeah. Now the Rhone, I have to say, was phenomenally interesting to me this week. There's a lot of really, really cool stuff. New and old, new school, old school, all kinds of things. There's like a array of the Chimère, the Chateauneuf Sine Qua Non collaboration. And there's 17, 18, 15, 16, 20, which I think just came out. I think the 20 came out like a week or two ago. There's Quillon, there's famous producers from, Northern Rhone, from Côte-Rôtie, Quillon, Gaillard, Villard, Côte-Rôtie, there's Essartaille from 1999 for 65, thought was very interesting. There's Morteray Cuvée Reine de Bois, 98. There's 98 Solitude for $35. I thought that was a great deal for something that's got, from a great vintage, 25 plus years on it. 2000 Pego, Pego Reserve, $65. Didn't think that was a bad deal. Some Jamais Côte-Rôtie, not crazy expensive, not cheap, but starting at $185 and going all the way to $550 for the 01, for the Côte Brune, I should say. 2000 Clos de Caillou, like Couts, quartz, if you will, $55. That's really, really tasty Chateauneuf. There's some Clos Caillou Reserve 05 for $150. There's a trio of Gonon Saint Joseph, which probably, I feel like this wine, it's shot way, way up in price over the last few years, but I feel like it's not really going for too much more than what it is now. 15s at 160, the 16s at 160, the 10s at 205. So yeah, they're not cheap, but really, really, really good wines. And they're not really going through the roof like some other things. There's some Guigal Côte-Rôtie, the Lalas, as everybody likes to say, La Landon, La Mouline, and La Turque from 99, 03, and 05. There's some Gangloff Côte-Rôtie, don't see that every day, from 1995. Quite a 30-year-old wine there, almost anyway, for $175. And then there's another batch of Chave Hermitage, which we just saw a crazy batch of it, I think, just a week or two ago. But there's a whole really new batch.
Chave Hermitage.
And the 91, the 91 is
91 for $5.
Woo! Serious price. Anyway, buy the 93 for $310. It's a lot less. Not the same wine, but anyway, really cool array of both white and red from Chave. Some Champé Côte-Rôtie, producer I'm not familiar with, but interesting because it goes back to 12. There's also 17. There's Joan Michel Cornas Mère Michel, interesting label. There's Benetier Côte-Rôtie Ladolium for $450, which is wild. That stuff was not terribly expensive a few years ago. Ogier also, some really, really expensive Ogier, the Belle Hélène from 98, $355, but then also younger vintages. There's 99 and 2001 Côte-Rôties for a little less, $125 for the 99. And then there's some Ucelio Chateauneuf Monaoul, 98 at 90, some 03 and 85. And then this other producer of Chateauneuf I'm always been kind of interested to try, but never had, is the Rotem and Munir Saouma. There's the Blanc Magis, it's called, from 09 at 100. And then there's the 2010 red Omnia, excuse me, at 120. It's a bunch of Sorel Hermitage, starting in 88, 88, 89 to 98, 2000, and then 04. Tardy Laurent Côte-Rôtie, there's Quillon Condria, don't see all the time, from 07. So yeah, it's just a really cool array of Rhone stuff this week for sure. So yeah, those were my selections.
Let's really quickly run around France, the rest of France. Beaujolais, we've got some interesting stuff. A bunch of Beaujolais coming in from all the way from Marcel Lapierre Morgon to Domaine de la Grande Cour, all the way to Claude de la Riolette. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a bunch of that Claude de la Royette. That one's hard to say. Royette.
There's a bunch of that. So if you're interested in Beaujolais, there's a bunch of interesting Beaujolais stuff. Almost all of it's like under $50, right? So really good prices there.
The Dutrevs are like, to me, like great deals because there's like the special cuvées have the wax tops on them, and there's like the Fleury Old Vines, the Tous Ensemble Cuvée Vieilles Vignes for $35 for the 16. I mean, that's a steal. That wine's got to be excellent, and that's not expensive. And also those Clos de la Boyette wines, the Fleury, the Cuvée Tardive, and I don't know what that means. Like if it's like extra barrel aging on it or something, but $31, and I think that's one of the higher end cuvées for that wine. But yeah, really, really good deals in Beaujolais.
Really good deals. Some cool champs coming into the auction. 97 Salon, 06 Taittinger, Comte de Champagne Blanc de Blanc, Ailey Oye, Ulysse Colon. Just a bunch of really interesting Chautagne Tallet coming into auction.
Yeah.
A bunch of interesting stuff from Champagne, from the Languedoc-Roussillon.
Hold on. I want to mention a couple of champagnes while we have a second.
Yeah, go for it.
Benoit Dehou, I saw that pop in this week, which we do not see very often. Cuvée La Rue des Noyers. It's got a bid. Looks like it's 76. There's some Baresh 18. Les Beauregard, a couple of those with bids at 96. Yeah, you mentioned Charton Taillé, Blanc de Noir. Again, Ailey sort of all over the map as far as pricing. It's hard to say like what's what, but like Vigne Vrignier Premier Cru is at 91, and then the Grand Cru VP multi-vintage, I think it's got disgorgement dates on the site. Anyway, 145. There's some Ouray Frère Brut Instantané, which I've never seen before. Producer I don't know. 96 Cru, 82 Cristal actually looks really, really cool. Great color on that. There's a bunch of Marguerite, like all the different Chaman labels. This appeals to natural wine fans for sure. There's Rosé, and then Chaman 12, 15, 16, all kinds of stuff. Mousset, Effusion Rosé. Mousset still seems like a great deal to me. It hasn't really gone up in price. The Rosé, Effusion Rosé is at 45, and there's 3 of those. There's another producer I never heard of, Nathalie Falmé, Cuvée La Valcornet for $50. There's a Rupert Leroy 13 vintage, Brut Nature. So that's a zero dosage for 65. And you mentioned Ulysse Colin. There's a bunch of Ulysse Colin stuff. Prices are obviously still very, very high for those, depending on disgorgements and designation. There's Maillon en Fer. Looks like Maillon en Fer. And then there's, so you were about to go to another region, and I'll jump the gun on that too and say there's Belluard Sparkling, another producer that's getting a lot of attention, sadly, due to the passing of the proprietor. But anyway, 13 Belluard Terroir Mont Blanc Brut Zero for $60. So that's kind of an interesting outside of champagne sparkling wine.
In Savoie. In the Languedoc-Roussillon, we got a few bottles coming, including an 1982 Chateau de Gourgazoud Minervois for $35. Yeah, and some 16 Mas Julien Pas de Harol for $35 as well. But some interesting stuff from the Languedoc-Roussillon. From the Loire, a couple bottles of 07 Huet Vouvray Brut. So some sparkling Domaine Huet.
I saw those. I've never had the sparkling wine. Have you had it?
$30.
Yeah. Have you had it? Have you had it?
I've not. We've got some Roger, 05 Roger. We've got some Olga.
Wait. What? 05 what?
Roger. Claude Roger.
Claude Rougiard?
Claude Rougiard.
Claude Rougiard. Yeah. Yeah, there's 05. Yeah, I saw another one. I mean, there's a lot of Claude Rougiard in this week, but
and then some Guy Berthaud coming in as well, including a 2010 Guy Berthaud Brisé mag for $230.
Yeah, I saw that. The Guy Berthaud, this is like one of those producers that's gaining, it keeps, getting more and more expensive. And there was a mag in, I think, even of the 2010 Rosé a couple of weeks ago, and it got bid way up. Yeah, it got bid way up. So yeah, this one's starting at 230, which I'm pretty sure that's where it hammered last time. Yeah, I picked that as well. And there's some Jolie wines too. I noticed there's Sauvignon from Jolie, which is always quite sought after, 16 and 18. Not terribly expensive, 55 for the 16 and 45 for the 18. So
now, let's head over to Provence. If John Malkovich is listening to this podcast, we have a bunch of Domaine Tempier coming into auction. 95 Bundle.
Yeah, I knew you were going to mention the Tempier. And we're in the second community. No, do you see there is a 85 Migua. Now that's a tough one to replace right there.
Yes.
You don't see mid-80s Tempier that often. You're not going to find those every day.
For 175. And then there's a bunch of Domaine de Travaillon.
There's a what 95 through looks like 96, 98, 03. Yeah, a bunch of Travaillon and multiple bottles. It looks like of the 98 and the 03. So it's not just a single bottle like we usually see.
Yeah, no, it's a bunch of stuff. And with that, I'm gonna put a cork in it.
You call it? All right.
We're done. I'm sticking a fork in it. Finished. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been WineBid's Finally Hammered podcast, discussing all the things coming, well, not all the things, but a lot of things coming in from France this week. With WineBid's Finally Hammered, this has been Jeff McGurn and Paul Walker wishing you happy bidding and cheers.
Cheers.